Heather Chikawi from the National Canoe Safety Program, NCSP. And Heather will tell you exactly what that stands for. Anyway, Heather, we'll give you the floor. Thank you very much for being here. And you're going to tell us about your mission and goals of your outfit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take the floor. It's all yours.
I'm hoping that people can see that who are on Zoom.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have it like shared screen, the rest.
Not
Yeah, Lori,
necessarily.
just click share screen and that should do it.
Carrie is doing it from afar.
Okay.
Okay.
No, you have to click share screen on your end, Lori.
And that is.
You want to just minimize it?
While we're doing that, I want to mention that Heather,
Okay.
a little bit about Heather. She holds a bachelor's degree in general science with a teaching focus from Temple University, and she's a volunteer with the National Canoe Safety Patrol and currently serves as that organization's training director. Okay, and she also knows how to do the computer.
There we
go.
That was multiple layers there. So.
If you want, what I could do is I could. I was the only, was I the only one?
I had no outlets left. Okay. We can figure it out.
All right. So NCSP, as you have now heard, stands for National Canoe Safety Patrol. So we operate on the Upper Delaware River through the Upper Delaware Park, recreational area. And so it's an approximately 72-mile stretch of river. And we kind of try to focus on those points where we're also interacting with sections where we have campgrounds and like high areas of activity. And so if you've heard of Skinner's Falls, that is one of our major places that we patrol. It is always incredibly busy and hectic on any given summer day. Right. So just a little bit about some of the earlier days of NCSP. It was started back in 1979. A group of folks that were on the Delaware kind of started to notice that there wasn't really anything but Park Service that was around. And so they kind of saw these gaps in areas where there wasn't really anybody like kind of overseeing or watching or checking in on people. And so they decided to form this organization to be able to cover those gaps and to be able to kind of like broaden the site along the Delaware. And so when during that time, a couple of years, like about a year or two later, 80s around the time, National Park Service became established on the Upper Delaware. So it kind of like broadened where they were located at.
Pardon me. Can we
Go
put the slide deck into presentation mode? At least all I'm seeing is mission and values title page. Does that make sense to anybody? There should be a little button.
It's in presentation mode for the people who are in person, but
Okay,
unfortunately Zoom is sharing what the laptop is showing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We haven't figured out how to figure that out.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
You may just want to get out of the presentation mode, just go by. So that's
Go find the slides.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
All right, is that better?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
It is.
All right. So one of the other things that NCSB had ended up becoming a part of was Project RAFT, which was kind of established to ease the tensions and be able to bridge the gaps during like World War times. And so it was a very cohesive group. And so they ended up being in the Carolinas on certain rivers. They kind of grouped up together and had rafting trips. And they also went to Costa Rica as well. All right, next slide. And so part of what NCSP really wants to do is they want to be present, but not a force. We want to be out there educating the public, showing them and guiding them along if they need help. But we're really not trying to infiltrate on somebody's day unless they need it. So a lot of times that can be people approaching us and asking us and having questions and certain things that they want to learn about the river or about paddling skills. And it's also if we see people in need. So if a situation happens, so there were a couple of times where I myself was on the river and saw people get injured. And so in those instances, we approach, we ask if we can help, and 9 times out of 10, they say absolutely. They are like, yes, we need this. If you were not here, we don't know what we would have done. And so hearing that and knowing everything that we are doing out there helps to validate and ensure that this is an organization that stays and lasts. Right, next slide. And so a lot of that is accomplished via our training. And so we have intensive training during the last weekend of April, first weekend of May. And during that time, we are focusing on essential swiftwater rescue skills. And so these are things that we as a group have learned. There are certain processes, such as unpinning a canoe, which our members have, in a sense, been out there practicing these skills, have learned better methods of which to do it and things that are more efficient and faster. So, oh yes, so this one and right here, additional training includes communications with National Park Service and guests, as well as specific boat-based rescue techniques. That in combination with some of the things that we do with the Park Service is we gain experience with the jet boat that we have out there. So that way, as NCSP, as our organization and group, we can interact with the Park Service and assist in rescues and be able to be used almost as a resource for the Park Service as well. The picture that we have right here is during one of our, this is actually a rescue that happened out on the river. And so we have is one of our members kind of helping and guiding along another that is getting the water out of canoe. So essentially what happened is the group flipped, their boat filled up with water, and that is an in-water rescue where you can flip the canoe back over and get the people back in the boat on the water. All right, next slide. All right, our values. Ooh, let's cut off a little bit there. So what NCSP has done throughout the years is created a very inclusive organization where anybody of any skill level can come and join us, get better, and gain friendships along the way as well. And so what these have done have created like lifelong and lasting friendships and kind of like more of a large family in a way. So we're at so many of the things that we end up doing throughout the year and groups that we form. So it's a very tight-knit organization, and we all rely on each other to support. And so what's really interesting about it is it's not an organization that proclaims that. We're not saying that we are diverse. We're not saying that we are that way because we show it. We exemplify being ready to accept anybody. And that's just one of the incredible values that are continued to be passed along throughout the generations that have come. And so we have families that have raised their kids through the organization, and the kids are coming back and wanting to be a part of it and wanting to show their friends how cool this group is and how awesome it is to be able to paddle on the rivers and explore nature. So, right, next one. And so some of the other things that NCSP is able to do is we do river clean events, which as pictured there, that was a lot of trash. I believe that was on the Sojourn a couple years ago. So before the Delaware Sojourn kicks off, it always starts off with a river cleanup event before going in. What we also do is not only is it the Delaware Sojourn, we also provide support for the Lehigh River Sojourn and the Zane Gray Day. And we just recently had a Independence Day festivities where we had a cookout at Zane Gray. And so that was for not only membership, but anybody that wanted to come and hang out as well. One of the other things, as far as rescue efforts go, every 2 years we host a swiftwater rescue training event, which is put on by, if you've ever heard of him, Mike Mathers, a world-class swiftwater instructor who has gone from South America to India to Canada teaching swiftwater rescue. And so he does an excellent job. We take a weekend and we put it out to our membership as well as other paddling organizations and other groups. A couple of years ago, I believe we also had a couple folks from a university program, university outdoor program. All right, so part of the efforts that we put out there, we also keep track of every patrol day that we have. And so the Park Service, thankfully, compiles all that information into essentially what is our results at the end of the year. And so what we have here is last year's results. Now, the first bullet point, the 5 perished outside of NCSP patrols, hours or locations, that includes weekdays. So essentially Monday through Friday, we are not really on patrol. Our patrols are Saturdays and Sundays. However, if it's a holiday, we go to the holidays. Now, what we see with that is it's typically evening hours when people are kind of at their max capacity for having either been day drinking or partying hard out on the water. And so we see, as it is, 3 swimmers, waders, no PFD. That is really critical for some of the efforts that we are doing as well as the Park Service, is getting the word out about personal flotation devices, PFDs, life jackets. And so what we see in those events especially is a lot of the people that explain what happened or were witnesses to the events say that there were people trying to push their limits, swimming across the river, trying to swim back and not making it. Those people thinking that they could do more than they could, not thinking a life jacket, like they didn't need one at all, it wasn't worth their while to put one on, and essentially losing their life at the end of that. So life jacket use is something that is extremely critical, and proper life jacket use saves lives. Now, part of some of the things you'll see here are patrol hours, 3,416. That's a lot of hours. That's a lot of people that are out there too, making sure that other people are safe. Contacts, 8,559. Contacts can be either us approaching people, talking to them saying, hey, do you have a life jacket with your vessel? Would you like to put it on? It's a lot easier to put one on when you're dry instead of wet and in the water. It's kind of difficult to do that while you're trying to swim. And it's also just people that are on the side of the river, experiencing it, using the rocks, kind of just observing. Rescues, boat overs, and calls to rangers. So you'll see that the number of rescues and calls to rangers, big jump. So a rescue can just simply be getting somebody out of the water that doesn't want to be in there anymore. So say a boat flipped or if somebody kind of popped out of a tube, that would be a rescue. Calls to rangers are essentially life-threatening, or if the person cannot physically get themselves out of their position. So a lot of times that ends up being a broken bone. So somebody slips and falls or falls out of a raft or a canoe and kind of hits a rock. Those can end up being calls to rangers.
Can I just say,
Absolutely.
how are you calling to rangers?
Radios. So radio system is the only thing that we have to be able to
So
communicate with
you're
rangers.
hooked into the NPS.
We borrow NPS's radios to be able to call them. Now, over the last 3-4 years, as an organization, we've started to gather Marine band radios so we can communicate with ourselves as groups. And so they're really within like range of sight. It's the only thing that we can operate it off of. However, I think it was for the past 2 years now, NPS has been able to listen into our radio chatter. So that has kind of been able to increase the amount of contact that we can have with the Park Service in case of emergency. But
And I understand what you're doing, but sometimes when you approach a raft and tell them to put on a life jacket.
Yeah.
Some people can be obnoxious.
oh, absolutely. Like that is the thing that we will always see.
Right?
But it's really interesting to go up to a raft of, say, young guys and kind of be like, why is nobody wearing a life jacket? And essentially doing something like that kind of tends to make at least one of them think and kind of bully the other group, the rest of the group, into wearing them. So just being able to have a voice and kind of like start that conversation allows for
So it's
a
valuable.
change.
It is. It's
Yeah.
valuable.
Okay. So the last slide that I have is kind of like a montage of just different images and things for what we do. So this right here would be an image of the Sojourn. So lots of boats, lots of people that we have out there. These are a couple groups that were out on patrol. A lot of times when we're out on patrol, we also see abandoned watercraft. So that used to be a canoe. And so one of the things that we try to do is to clean up any debris that is out there. So we always like to leave it better than the way we found it. And then this is some of our instruction that we do as well. And this is NCSP.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, Heather, first of all, I want to thank you. How long have you been doing this and teaching this?
At least 6 years now.
6 years on the Upper Delaware?
Yeah.
Okay, and so some of those hours are your hours, lots of
Yes.
them, right? And you participated in rescues?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, and it has to do with, I know you mentioned you have radios, you communicate with the NPS and vice versa. What about someone who may not be right in your immediate area and they want to communicate and they can't because they don't, for example, have a cell phone signal, something like that?
Yeah.
What is the factor of time in these rescue events? How critical is that?
It's critical. So if there are situations or scenes where us as an organization is not present, if the Park Service isn't present or on patrol or in and around the area, that's where you see that number. So the 5 deaths that we had, incidents that we had, yeah, they were within campgrounds in the areas, but many of those campgrounds do not have service. You cannot reach. A lot of times what you end up having to do is running back to, say, the campground or park office, and they may be closed because it's after hours. So in those kinds of situations, you lose precious time.
When, one moment, I'd like to address that question a little bit. My name is Larry Palmer. I'm the Commodore of NCSP. Thank you for allowing us to speak with you tonight. And thank you, Heather, for doing a superb job. You know, one of the things we do is, you know, every patrol takes a Park Service radio with them. And so if we can't reach dispatch, we'll go through a local kiosk. We have the ability to, you know, kind of try a couple of different avenues to establish communication. If we're at Skinner's patrolling in that stationary area, at the bottom of Skinner's, you know, we've got the availability of going up to the key, you know, communicating to the kiosk via the radios, and that is a really important aspect of getting advanced support, medical attention out on the rocks and things like that. Heather and I have both participated in a rescue of at the beginning of a patrol day a couple of years ago, where there was a compound fracture of someone on the rocks. So, being able to maintain, care for that person while reaching out to the kiosk and the Park Service, so that they could coordinate EMS and muster the number of people it takes to carry a woman out from the rocks of Skinner's to ambulance access. That's a key part of the communication.
Heather?
Yeah.
She touched upon one of my questions is you do have radios where you can communicate with the Park Service,
Exactly.
but are you also hooked into the different EMS stations throughout the town along the river? Because time is valuable. And, if someone knows of an incident, they can get there faster if you're more upstream or whatever. So it's critical that people get there as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
That's why that communication with EMS is critical as well. So I'm just putting it out.
I'd
there.
like
I
to
think
address
that.
I'd like to address that if possible.
Yep, go for it,
Oh,
Donna.
yeah.
Donna Ford, also a member of NCSP. All of the liveries have communication by phone to the dispatch, which is actually headquartered at Delaware Water Gap. And dispatch there operates 24/7 and can reach out to local EMS. So as a volunteer organization through the park, communication within the park is very rapid. And then dispatch will contact EMS. Just as an example, this past weekend, we had a very severe incident before we even put on the river at Skinner's, where we were able to reach dispatch, who called Coshocton EMS right away. We had first responders and then an ambulance at Skinner's Falls within 20 minutes. We had a diabetic situation that our members were able to handle, and Coshocton Rescue Squad got there to transport the individual for additional care. So our influence is really with the park, and then dispatch with local EMS and first responders.
That's
I hope that
commendable. So you don't
information
call
helps.
911 Sullivan. But I'm just putting it.
Right, we don't have the capability to reach out direct to 911.
Okay.
That's due to the radios not being in line with those as well. So we are really only communicating through Park Service.
So you would call the Park Service, and the Park Service would then call the local fire departments. or-
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how the chain goes.
Well, on behalf of the Upper Delaware Council, I want to thank the Commodore and the remote and Heather for the job that you do. I mean, the number of volunteer hours that you put in is extraordinary. And we want to thank you all very much for your service to the safety of the river. Very, very important. And thank you for your presentation. I look for our official pin, which you can put on your hat
I
or
can-
your life jacket.
No, I'll put it on my life jacket. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay, thank you so much for your program. Okay.
I have an unusual request, which is that our presenter make a presentation that she knows nothing about. But what happened was at the Delaware River Sojourn this year, one of the Admiral Awards went to our own Nadia. Unfortunately, Carrie was working that day and her car broke down before she could get to the Sojourn. So she has the certificate here that would have been presented to you. And I wondered if, as a representative of the Sojourn, could you present that so I can take a photo?
Ingrid did a wonderful job for the Park Service.
Yes,
She was
Ingrid
there.
did represent in Carrie's absence, but Maybe you can.
Picture time.
You want
Yeah,
to
it's
go
fine.
anywhere over here,
Anywhere over here.
Sure.
Up against the certificates.
A wall of certificates. Excellent. We can put that front and center.
Thank you.
No problem.
I was saying, how would we ever recreate this because we missed it, but here we had another chance.
It's blue water.
With the
Excellent,
perfect
thank you.
person.
We have a Commodore and a High Admiral and.
We got it all.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadia.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Heather, for that. So extra duty. We can